Hello everyone. In this video, we will be finally finishing up our platformer tutorial, and at the end of this, you should be equipped to go out and add your own things. So, just making sure it's recording. It is. Alright, let's get to work. So, let's check what we have so far. Click coins. Alright. So we added enemies, we added the bouncing, and now we are on the last step, adding checkpoints to our game. So if you remember in Mario, especially for a very long map, if we were to die, we'd have to go all the way to the back, to the beginning. By adding checkpoints, we can make it so that strategically we have save locations for players throughout our map. Generally, instead of deleting the player, a game will have a checkpoint. The checkpoint saves the state of the game and the state of the player into variables. Then, if the player dies, the game and/or player restarts from the checkpoint. For this tutorial, saving the state of the entire game and the player's state may be a bit too advanced. Instead, when a player collides with a checkpoint object, we are going to store the position of the checkpoint object inside variables. Also, instead of deleting the player, we are just going to reset its position to whatever is stored inside the variables. So we are going to start by creating a new sprite, call it checkpoint. It can be any image you have. So let's do that. Sprite, animation image. Do I have anything in here? Not quite. I'm just going to try to look for another image from maybe another game. Maybe the Flappy that we've worked on, Flappy Bird, or maybe maybe Pichu. Alright, let's add a Pichu to our game. That'll be a checkpoint object. Your sprite image may be too large or too small. Use the handlebars on a sprite to resize its image. So they named it checkpoint. I'm going to name it checkpoint. Don't animate supply. Let's put it here. Well, it's really big. Let's resize it. So right here. So now, here's my checkpoint. Let's put it up here actually. There's my checkpoint. You can add your object sprite to multiple places in your scene. That way, you can set multiple checkpoints. Let's just put another one right here. There you go. Small again. I wonder if I can just copy and paste. Oh yeah, I could. So I don't have to resize constantly. Let's just copy this one then. Control C, Control V. Now we have to add events. Now that we have the checkpoint objects in our scene, let's add the events. We start with a condition, so let's add an event. Condition. To check to see if there's a collision between a player and a checkpoint. So this is just collision. We've done this many times. Between the player and the checkpoint. So if that happens, what do we want to do? We want to add an action. We want to store the X and Y position of the checkpoint object sprite into a scene variable called checkpoint X and checkpoint Y. Alright, so let's modify value scene value of a scene variable. I want to modify it's not right here. Let's add it. Remember, we can always add a scene variable right here, and that's just best practice. So let's add. Let's call it checkpoint X. Let's set it initially to 0, and let's make another one. checkpoint Y. So remember, by default, it is set to 0, but we can also type it in. So we want to assign X. We want to make it equal to, and we want to make it equal to the checkpoint that we put in. So this checkpoint refers to the checkpoint object that we touch. In my case, it's the Pichu, and it's going to be the X position of the Pichu. I'm going to right click, copy, I'm going to paste. I'm going to set this to not to the X, I want it to be checkpoint.y. And it should be the scene variable checkpoint y. Alright, and if we look, it's the same. So notice, we are using expressions to get the X and Y position of the checkpoint object sprite. So remember, we named our checkpoint object checkpoint. And checkpoint.x parentheses, that is a capital X, gets the X position of the checkpoint object. And you can find more expressions in the expression editor by clicking on this blue icon. So when you click on the icon, you can search all the available expressions stored into categories. So the condition now stores the X and Y position of the checkpoint object with which our player object has collided. So it would store this location, or it would store this location, depending on which checkpoint object my player collided with. Again, both of these are checkpoint objects, but the one we store depends on which one our player collided with. Now, whenever we die, we don't want to delete the player sprite object. We want to set its X and Y positions using the variables. So let's go into our code. Where can we die? Well, we delete the player, right? So let's take this off. We're not going to delete the player. We're going to set the player position to the variable checkpoint X and the variable checkpoint Y. So we're going to look for an action called change position. Let's see, position. Maybe it's move to position. I'm going to move the player. No, I don't think it's this one. Where can I find it? Let's try looking common position. We can find it in common action for all objects, position of an object. The player object, I'm going to set the position equal to the variable checkpoint X. And again, checkpoint X is my scene variable that I just created. And the Y position equal to checkpoint Y. Let's click OK. Let's double check. It looks the same. Alright, in the example above that we are using another set of expressions to get the value of stored variables and pass them to the player position. So we are using another set of expressions, which is the variable checkpoint X. Kind of like casting, which we don't really get to in this class, but if you take a computer science class, we cast a lot of things. So you should take computer science. Alright, let's go ahead and save. Let's check to make sure our checkpoint is working. So let's touch this one. Alright, so I should revive there. Alright, and look, I revived there. Now, let's see if I can make myself revive here. Alright, I don't think I touched it, but maybe I did. Okay, let's try moving this here. Saving it. Alright. So I should revive at the bottom. Okay, I think I touched that Pichu. Let's try this again. That was the last checkpoint I touched. Alright, and I revive at the bottom. Awesome. Now, let's try it without touching any of the checkpoints. Let's see what happens. Alright, and I revive somewhere way up there, like the top. So that's a bug. In case you're following along and you also select the cactus for the checkpoint, okay, you might also notice we have created a bug. Our player character is taller than the cactus. When we set the Y position of the player, we actually set the position too low and the player gets stuck in the ground. In this case, we can easily solve the problem by scaling the cactus sprite on the Y-axis to be as high or even higher than the player. Since by now you know how to scale and resize the sprite, let's see how to do it using a little more challenge. So what they're saying is, hey, let's resize this sprite to be as high or even higher than the player instead of just putting it on the ground. But let's do a little bit more challenging. Let's use math to work around the problem. So here we can see their math. Right? They're using a more evolved solution to show you how powerful expressions can be. My solution is to set the Y position of the player using a variable right here. I then subtract the height of the checkpoint from the height of the player. This way you get the difference in player and checkpoint height. They then finish the solution by subtracting that difference from whatever their variable returns. So we see the Y value minus the player height minus the checkpoint height. So let's try and make our code like that. So we don't want to set the Y to this. We're going to set to Y minus parentheses player height. So get the height of the player image minus checkpoint dot height, the height of my checkpoint object. And that should work. Now in my example, it wasn't really a problem, but let's just try it out. Checkpoint. All right, and you see because my checkpoint object is a little bit off, it's a little bit higher than the ground, that means I'm a little bit higher than the ground when I actually start. So let's see if I can put this right on the ground. There we go. Save. All right, hit my checkpoint. All right, and look, I appear on the ground. There is an easier solution, which is to hard code it, basically to put a numeric value in there. But it takes a lot of trial and error versus just programming it once with code. Now this should be reviewed for students in my class. Basically we have a canvas, and in the top left, it's 0, 0. Going right from the top left, we increase in value. Going down, we increase in value. There is no negative on this canvas. So if you've taken Algebra 1, where the going right is increasing in x value, it's the same thing. But going down is increasing in y value. There is no going up or going left. So most 2D engines work in this manner, right? Whenever you work with 2D stuff, it's probably going to be like this. All right, here's the last bug I was talking about. If our player dies before we collide with any checkpoint, the variables are going to return a value of 0 because that's what they are originally, right? We haven't set it to anything. They are originally 0. And so our player is going to respond and reappear at position 0, 0, which is right here, the top left. We can easily fix this problem by setting the default values for the checkpoint values to be the starting position of the player at the beginning of the scene. So beginning of scene, at beginning of scene, I'm going to assign values. So let's try to look for that. Position, right? I'm assigning position. I'm going to set, do I want to set position of an object? No, I want the position of a variable, right? So let's look. Where can I find position of a variable? Variables right there. Oh, right here. I want to set the variable value of a scene variable. Which one? I want to set checkpoint X. I want to set it equal to player.x, the original starting value of the player. I'm going to copy, I'm going to paste, I'm going to set the y, I'm going to set checkpoint y, the scene variable, to the original y position of the player, which on mine is right here. Save and play. I'm not touching any checkpoint, and look, I appear where I died. I appear where I started the game. Now I touch the checkpoint. Okay, I touched that checkpoint, and I should appear right there. Awesome. Well, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial walkthrough. Now you can do a lot more things with GDevelop. There are a lot more resources that GDevelop provides, and I hope that you will take advantage of them when making your very own platformer game. Enjoy.